All right, we have learned a few things about how heat is transferred from the sun to the ground through empty space. We've learned how heat is transferred from the ground into the air right above the ground through a heat transfer called conduction, where particles actually hit each other. And we have learned about these things called convection currents, which is another type of heat transfer that happens in the air when we have a heat source at the ground. So remember that convection currents, the movement of air, rising air and sinking air, creates movement in the air. We call this wind, right? And so wind is created when warm air that is warmed up by the Earth's surface, right over here, rises up because as it gets warmed, it becomes less dense, and less dense things tend to rise. And it cools down as it gets further away from that heat source and sinks again. As it's rising, it's creating empty space. Empty space doesn't really exist on Earth because things fill it. And that is what wind is. Wind is cooler air coming in to fill up that space. That air moving up is called an updraft. And it is pushing up with a force. We can represent a force with an arrow. The greater the force, the longer the arrow. So water droplets, as they condense, can be pushed up by updrafts. This is what keeps clouds from always raining. Clouds are made of small water droplets in the sky. They are not always falling because warmer air is pushing them up and keeping them up in the air. But something is also pulling them down. The force pulling raindrops down, obviously, is the same force that pulls you down towards the center of Earth, and that is called gravity. As long as the force of the air pushing up is strong enough, the water droplets will stay in the air, in those clouds. However, if that force, if the water droplets become bigger, or the updraft becomes smaller, that water will fall to the ground as some sort of precipitation. So in summary, there are two forces at play when we're talking about precipitation in the air or atmosphere. We have warm air rising, creating updrafts or air pushing up, and we have gravity pulling down. If the air pushing up is stronger than the gravity pulling down, the water will stay in the air. If those forces pushing the water up are less, or the raindrops grow bigger, or the precipitation grows heavier, gravity will no longer, gravity will pull those precipitation down towards Earth.